Dzień dobry. Dzisiaj mamy przyjemność rozmawiać w dosyć nietypowych okolicznościach, bo nie jesteśmy w naszym studio, które Państwo znacie znakomicie z naszych poprzednich nagrań. Jesteśmy w warszawskiej siedzibie firmy Huawei, a będziemy rozmawiali o komputerach kwantowych i o bezpieczeństwie, czyli o tematach naprawdę interesujących. Serdecznie zapraszam. A moim gościem jest dzisiaj pan Henricksen, właśnie z firmy Huawei. Let's start with the basic thing. What's your role in Huawei? What do you really do? I know you're a scientist, but that's a really large term, right?
So technically I'm a cryptographer. And because I'm working in an industry, a company, then I'm a cryptographer that works on applied aspects of things. For example, making protocols or algorithms run fast enough that our products can work very efficiently. And in terms of quantum realities, I'm also working on post-quantum cryptography, which is working out how to navigate the problems that quantum computers will bring to us in the future.
Mm-hmm. You just used the term quantum computers, and I guess everyone knows the term, but not really everyone knows what's behind that term. So could you explain just a little bit what really quantum computing is?
Okay. So a quantum computer is a kind of special computer that we can, in the future, apply to a particular set of problems. Many people have the belief that quantum computers will replace classical computers and that they can do everything very much faster. At the moment, we are not very sure exactly what problems quantum computers will be better at, but we know that cryptography is one of them. So a quantum computer can do to some cryptographic algorithm things that classical computers could never do. Mm-hmm. And this makes a problem for us in the medium to long-term future.
Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned cryptography, and that's a quite common view that the quantum computers can break ciphers pretty good. So should we view them as a threat for us, like normal computer users? Or is it more than a chance for science, for example?
It's a threat to normal users in the sense that if some company has your data and that data is very attractive to an attacker, and the attacker is well invested and has sufficient money that in the future it can buy the services of a quantum computer, then it can attack those algorithms that are currently protecting your data, but may not be able to protect it well into the future.
So I guess it's more kind of a threat of the future, or should we be worried a little bit already by now? And if so, what can we do to avoid this threat?
At the moment, we have small quantum computers. So instead of using bits like in classical computers, we use qubits. So a qubit is just a bit in a quantum computer. And at the moment, I think the biggest quantum computer has 128 qubits. So if you look at that in terms of classical computers, 128 bits, that's nothing at all. So we consider that some cryptographic algorithms will really be in danger when quantum computers have 4 million qubits.
Mm-hmm. So that's still a long road, right?
If we estimate that every year the number of qubits in the quantum computer doubles, then maybe in the time frame 2030 to 2040, there will be a quantum computer that's capable of breaking algorithms like RSA with a 2048-bit key. But there are still some issues. So supposing that you and me, we are communicating now, and we want to make a key using RSA, and then we use that key to communicate with an algorithm like AES. Mm-hmm. And then someone is listening to our communications, and so he gets the messages that we use to make the key. He doesn't have a quantum computer now, but he can save those messages and also save our encrypted conversation, and he can't do anything with it until he gets his hand on a quantum computer. So if in 20 years' time he manages to use the services of a quantum computer to break our conversation, then that's a danger if the material in our conversation is still relevant in 20 years. So if we are just conversing I'd like to go to a bar tonight. How about you? This is useless material next week. But if we are discussing some government secrets, for example, that could be controversial in 20 years, then actually the quantum computer is a problem now, even though there's no mature quantum computer right now.
So I guess that the governments and the largest corporations are more like threatened by possibility of being quantum hacked, right?
Yes. Even in the range 2030 to 2040, quantum computers of the size that's necessary to break RSA, they will be incredibly expensive and not that fast. So,
but will be available.
Yes. So then the messages that will be targeted must be incredibly valuable to break.
So I guess that if quantum computing is a really that kind of sophisticated thing and still a little bit thing in the future. So what companies and governments should do now to protect themselves in the future?
We are being assisted by a global kind of competition. It's run by NIST, so National Institute for Standards and Technology in the USA. And they've been working on this for the past 5 or 6 years to have a competition. They don't call it a competition, but it's basically a competition where they said to the academic community, please send us your algorithms that you think will not be able to be broken by quantum computers. So algorithms like RSA, they rely on hard problems, and the hard problem underlying RSA is factoring. So if you multiply two numbers like 1024 and 3657, that's relatively easy. But if you then take the product of that and try and break it back down into those two numbers that I just said, that's factoring. So on a classical computer, that's very hard, but on a quantum computer, it becomes very easy. There are still other hard problems for which we don't know if a quantum computer can solve those or not. So what NIST has done is it has asked the academics to submit these algorithms into a kind of a pool where they'll be scrutinized and analyzed. And then the good ones will be standardized. So this competition has several rounds. And we just reached to the stage of the end of the third round, where NIST selected four algorithms, one of them for key exchange and 3 of them for signatures. So these will be turned into standards. So now that we know that these quantum safe algorithms will be standards, then what companies can do is they can look at all of their products and see where their products use vulnerable algorithms like RSA and Diffie-Hellman, and then work out how can they replace those algorithms with these new quantum safe algorithms. What will the impacts be? For example, RSA and Diffie-Hellman, they are quite simple to understand, and requirements are not so much, whereas some of the post-quantum or quantum-safe algorithms are very complex. For example, there's one well-known quantum-safe algorithm where the public key is more than a megabyte long.
Just the key? Just
the key. So there are many situations where you won't be able to put that megabyte key there. Even if you look at things like OpenSSL, I think it likes to have its keys underneath 64 kilobytes. So you cannot just say, okay, I put this algorithm into where RSA or Diffie-Hellman was, it just won't work. So even before these four algorithms have been standardized, at least we know what they're going to be. So companies can start to go through all their products and work out how to do that migration. Then when the algorithms are standardized, we know exactly how to do it very fluently.
So I guess it's a really hard job before the companies and the governments will be ready for this quantum era, right?
It's a little bit like the Y2K problem.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's more than a threat than real problem? I mean, threat in our heads.
You should always hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
It's true.
Yeah.
We've talked already about the threats, but maybe you can tell us more about what Huawei does in that field.
What Huawei has done is it's formed a committee consisting of people like me from the research lines, and then representatives from all of the product lines. So we documented very many use cases where those vulnerable algorithms are, and then we've formulated a strategic plan for actually making sure the products are safe. So we worked out 3 scenarios. The first scenario is these things are already vulnerable. For example, what I told you before about the attacker looking at the development of session key and then keeping the session key and the associated data until 20 years into the future.
So we cannot do anything basically today for stop him.
One popular technique among cryptographers now is called hybrid key. So you take your elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman key and PQC, a post-quantum cryptography algorithm that makes a key, and you put those together. So then 20 years later, when the quantum computer comes, it can break the elliptic curve, Diffie-Hellman part, but it can't break the other part. Unless the problem is because the quantum safe algorithms are quite new compared to elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman. Some of them are only 5 years or 10 years old. And so maybe, as recently happened, some cryptographers analyzed the algorithm and they managed to break it. So there was a very famous break of an algorithm that we thought was quite nice, and someone managed to get his laptop and then break it in 1 hour.
Yeah, I've heard about it, but that was like really something surprising, because it should be very secured, right?
It's surprising in a way, but NIST has also planned for this kind of thing. So at the end of the 3rd round, it said here are four algorithms that we're very confident about, but we're going to have a 4th round, and here are some more algorithms which we think are promising but not yet mature. So we need people to look at these much more. And the algorithm that was broken was one of these, so it had entered into the 4th round. We knew that the analysis was not enough. And there's another issue as well, which is that because these algorithms are very complicated, it requires people with very advanced mathematical skills to analyze them. So maybe one person has the right skills to analyze this particular algorithm, but he's not so good at analyzing this algorithm. So you also need the right person to come along to the right algorithm. And I think that's what happened with this. It was a bit sad because many of the algorithms at this stage of the competition are all based on one hard problem. And this algorithm was based on a different hard problem. So if in the future something happens to the hard problem that most of the algorithms belong to, this was a nice backup. But the break was so devastating that this backup algorithm has just fallen out.
So what's your advice, for example, to governments and institutions, like, for example, the European Union, to be, secured in the future?
Don't do anything before standardization except for the very critical cases. And then be ready for when standardization comes along to start the migration process.
So wait and watch, basically.
You don't need to wait very much longer. I think the first set of standards will be out next year.
Really? So quite soon. Okay, and Huawei has received a patent like 3 years ago in quantum computing. Can you describe what was it really about and what's the story behind that?
Okay, so this one is a little bit more complicated. It's about quantum key distribution.
Still, let's try this.
And I can talk about it in terms of photons and polarizations, but it just becomes too complicated. So suppose I'm going to use an analogy, which is not a very good analogy because quantum world and real world is not the same. So you and me, we want to use a one-time pad, right? So one-time pad is a series of random numbers. And if your series of random numbers is as long as the message that you're going to encrypt, then it's theoretically secure. There's nothing that can be done. So the issue with this is you have a 1 megabyte message, you're going to need 1 megabyte of random numbers. How do you do that? So we have a wire, and I want to use this wire to negotiate with you the 1 million numbers for our message. But what if someone is listening in on the wire? Then our theoretical security doesn't mean anything. So I can talk about photons, or instead I can say I have a box here, and inside the box I have some tokens, and some of the tokens are circles and some of the tokens are squares. And then each of the token can have one of two colors. It's either yellow or blue.
For now, I get it.
Okay.
Circles, squares.
Yes.
I can. I can't understand that one.
So I'm going to stay on this level for a bit, and I'm going to throw this circle or square at you, and you have to catch it, right? But this is quantum world, so it's not that simple. And the thing that makes it not that simple is also the thing that lets us tell whether there's an eavesdropper or not. To catch it, you're going to need to use a glove, right? So if I throw out a circle at you, you're going to need to use a glove that catches circles, right? And then if you use the glove that catches circles, when you get the circle, you can say, okay, it's yellow or it's blue, and you'll be right. And same if I throw a square at you. You need to use the square glove. But these are random, right? So I'm going to throw a circle or a square, and you don't know, you're going to have to guess. So I get my first token, and you put on your circle hand glove, and it's a circle, so you got it, right? You know it's yellow or blue. And then you get ready for the next one. I'm going to throw you a circle or a square, and you say, okay, I put on my square, but it's a circle. So what happens now is you can catch it, but you don't know whether it's a circle or a square, and because you're using the wrong glove, its color may change. So now its color, I sent you a yellow circle, but now its color has changed with 50%, so it's yellow or blue, and you don't know, right? So then at the end of this, I've sent you 1,000 circles or squares, and each of those has yellow or blue. So we have an extra channel, a classical channel, not a quantum key distribution channel. And on the classical channel, I said to you, the first one I sent to you is a circle. You say, okay, I got a circle, so put those aside. And I say, the next one I sent to you is a square. You say, okay, got a square, put those aside. But because you're guessing, you're going to be wrong half of the time. So then at the end, we have 500 of these tokens, and we have agreed on whether they are circles or squares. So now we want to take aside a small portion of those. So we have 500, maybe we take away 10. And so I say, okay, this circle is yellow. You say, yeah, I got it right, the circle is yellow. And then this square is blue, this square is blue. So after we've done some of these, we feel, okay, everything is as it should be. Everything is correct. And so we use the remaining tokens to be bits for our random key. So say yellow is 0 and blue is a 1. The issue is if we have an eavesdropper, so the eavesdropper is looking onto the wire. She also has to use gloves, right? So she catches the circle with the wrong glove, and then the color will flip randomly. So you were wrong half of the time, and we threw those ones away. She is wrong half of the time. So the errors have increased. She is wrong half of the time, you're wrong half of the time. By the end, we see that you are not wrong half of the time because the errors have amplified. So you are able to detect that there was an eavesdropper there because the error rate has increased beyond what you'd expect.
Okay, I think I can understand that.
Yes.
That's amazing. Not the technology. Technology is also amazing, but it's amazing that I understand.
So I haven't answered your question yet. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's complicated. So this is an algorithm from 1984, and it's based on something called discrete quantum key distribution.
Okay.
So what the patent is about continuous quantum key distribution, and it's about making each token have more than 2 colors, and also being able to throw more than 2 tokens to you at the same time.
Okay.
But even more importantly than that, it's about using conventional telecom equipment. Because if we're just throwing photons to each other, we're going to use very specialized photon detectors, and they're going to be cooled to reduce the noise in the photons. But this continuous QKD, it can use conventional telecom equipment. So the requirement is less. It's like you need to have a less expensive glove that can do more.
Okay, so closing up, should we be afraid of quantum computers or see it as a potential accelerator of the future?
Both.
Both.
We should be, well, if your company is responsible and it's working towards migrating to quantum safe algorithms, then you can just look forward to the benefits in other areas such as big data and drug formulations.
But if you're not, you're in trouble, right?
Every company has a responsibility, and I think they will be motivated by the potential potential issues to work towards this. Yes.
Okay, so the future is not that kind of dark, really, or maybe it is. We don't know.
I think the situation currently is good because of NIST's proactiveness. So we have a bunch of algorithms that look very nice, and their performance is also very nice.
Okay, good. So thank you for your time today. It was a pleasure to talking with you and hearing this really complicated things explained very on the very basic model, so I could understand. So thank you again, and I hope we'll do another talk when the quantum computers will be something more visible, or maybe sooner. Yeah, sooner, because you've mentioned it's really a long time.
Yes.
Okej. Dziękujemy Państwu bardzo. To był taki trochę niecodzienny odcinek, bo nie nagrywany u nas w studio, natomiast myślę, że dosyć interesujący dla wszystkich, którzy lubią nowinki, których jeszcze póki co za bardzo uświadczyć na co dzień nie możemy, takie jak komputery kwantowe. Do zobaczenia.